I have no idea what to say. I mean, I know what I'm going to say, but this game has me speechless. The game of football that I just saw played by the Penn State Nittany Lions may have been the most sorry game of football that I've ever seen in my life. I've watched Davis Mills play for the Texans. I've watched the Steelers lose to the Jets. But I don't think I've ever seen a team play so poorly than what I saw Penn State play today. I understand people have off weeks, but why is it that every bye week that Penn State comes off of, they have 2 weeks to prepare for this team, keep in mind. Every bye week, they play terribly, and they usually escape with a win, but today they weren't so fortunate. I really wish that they had won because then their college football playoff chances would still be alive. Let's be honest, it's not. The only way it is if all of these teams in the country, except for number 1 and number 2 ranked, maybe number 3, maybe, if all these other teams also lose 2 games and Penn State wins out, looks amazing, and beats some of those teams that have 2 losses, it makes the playoff at number 4. That's not going to happen. That's not happening. And if they do, you can call them the luckiest team in college football playoff history. Heck, college football history. It's not happening. What I saw today was an embarrassment to the game of football. It is an embarrassment to the Pennsylvania State University. And it is an embarrassment to anyone, and I'm wearing a Cavaliers hat because they play at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, to anyone who roots or went to the Penn State Nittany Lions. This is the homecoming week. The homecoming week. Everyone who wasn't already watching you, who used to play for you, is watching you. They're there. You're supposed to honor them. And what do? You lose to the Illinois Fighting Illini, right? Everyone has off games, but clearly you are looking ahead to Ohio State. Clearly, you do not do that. This game, although there was a chance that it could have been a close game, it should not have been a loss for Penn State. Yes, the way they played it should have been a loss for Penn State. But when it comes to the overall outlook of the game, if people going into this game, sure, some people might say, oh, well, Penn State might only win by 14. They might not look great, but they'll win ugly, right? And I could see that happening because I've watched this team play before, and I've watched them overlook opponents. But oh my goodness, in no world, I don't care who you're playing next. I don't care if you're playing the best Alabama team of all time ever. In no world should you lose to the Illinois Fighting Illini, a 2-5 team, in Happy Valley in front of 107,000 fans. You had your student section helping you in overtime, and you still can't get the job done. The Fighting Illini ran for almost 350 rushing yards. Now, they could have easily had a great game, but that clearly is a testament to how poorly this team has played. Their defense, they were not the reason why we lost in overtime, but their defense, oh my goodness, in regulation, they could not stop a fly. They couldn't stop a fly, let alone a 250-pound man who's 6'5". Okay? And then next, who else do you have? Sean Clifford. He's coming off of an injury. I didn't expect for him to be the normal Sean Clifford. I didn't expect for this game to be a blowout. I did not expect for Penn State to go out here and win in a fashion that wasn't at least somewhat ugly. But my goodness, I get he's coming off of an injury. But if he was good enough to play, he should still beat the Illinois Fighting Illini. The play calling was utter trash. It was terrible. Oh my God, I can't even begin to explain. I have so many thoughts in my head right now. The play calling was terrible. The execution was horrendous. And there was no heart. There was no sense of them even wanting to be on the football field playing the game of football. It didn't even look like they wanted to be there. You can look ahead to Ohio State a little bit. Mentally prepare yourself for the schedule that you have coming up. Because you're in the Big Ten, and you have Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. And Rutgers could also be a trap game. You have important games coming up. I get that. Mentally prepare yourself. But don't disrespect your opponent to the point where Penn State did today. If Penn State won, I would have been happy because their college football playoff chances would still be alive, and so would the Big Ten championship chances. But my goodness, they would not have deserved to win this game. And at the end of the day, it's justice that they lost this football game. I'm in no way discrediting what the Illinois Fighting Illini did today. They played a good, solid game of football. They pounded the rock, and they won the game. But let's be honest with ourselves. The 350 rushing yards, that's great offense by Illinois, but that's also horrendous defense when it comes to the Penn State Nittany Lions. That isn't just Illinois having a good rushing game. There's problems. There's systemic problems in this Penn State program, okay? Ever since we've hired James Franklin, our program has been going up. Last year took a dip. Now we're back up. Not quite as high as we were with McSorley, but we're up here, right? We just went back down to about here after that loss, but that's for this season. Overall, we're still right about here. So, James Franklin, I'm privileged to be sitting here and complaining about James Franklin as a Penn State Nittany Lion fan. I know at least 95% of colleges would love to have this man as their head coach. He's not bad, but he's not great. And this may be controversial. Let me tell you my opinion. Penn State is 21-10 when they're in the top 10. Now, like I said, being the top 10, that's a great thing. That's an awesome achievement. But a lot of those losses from James Franklin were chokes to Ohio State, and they were games that they had won and should have won, like whenever they play Michigan State or today against the Fighting Illini. It proves to me that they are good, but with James Franklin at the head coach, I've had this idea in my head for years now, and today proved it. They cannot make the college football playoff with James Franklin as their head coach. I'm sorry. They need a revamp of their coaching staff if they really want to take that next step to not just be one of the best teams in the nation, but a top 4 team in the nation, even if it's just for 1 year. Just a team that can make the playoff in a somewhat consistent basis. They can maybe, and if they get lucky, they can maybe make the Big Ten championship game with James Franklin. But let me tell you, they will not win the big game. They cannot win the big game with James Franklin as their head coach. And honestly, I've seen them overlook so many teams over the years. And I've seen them had some pretty bad performances, especially last year. None of them even compare to what I saw today. None of them. You have 9 overtimes in front of your fans, your fan base, who just wants to escape this god-awful game so they can just reset and hopefully have at least a respectable game against Ohio State. And if they win, they have to win out. If they won this game, they have to win out. And all they want to do is get this burden of a football game out of their heads and try to say, okay, we have a chance next week. We can maybe do this. But let me tell you, that is not what happened. They lost. They lost this game. And I can't even explain. I can't even put this into words. They lost a game that they truly, Sean Clifford dropping that catch on the trick play and the 2-point conversion, that was unlucky for us. Followed up by an unlucky play for Illinois. This game was so crazy, it took about 65 years off of my life. I don't even know how I'm talking right now. But the fact of the matter is that the Penn State Nittany Lions, I don't care if they have to throw another year away next year or a year after that to get new coaching and find the right coach and get them adjusted. But with the type of recruiting that they're bringing in, they should not be losing so many times whenever they're in the top 10. Let alone to the Illinois Fighting Illini. This is not, I mean, James Franklin can't go on the field and play. I get that. This is not all on James Franklin. But let me tell you, James Franklin, he's good, but he's just Jim Harbaugh, except he's better. Right? At least, and this year he's not. Jim Harbaugh's the better coach this year. But overall, he's better than Jim Harbaugh, but he has the reputation that Jim Harbaugh has should be given to James Franklin. As far as I'm concerned, it should be given to James Franklin. All right? Penn State, there's still so many teams would kill to have the success that Penn State has, but they just can't get over the hump. And if they find the right coaching and get the right recruiting, which they're getting the right recruiting right now, they can compete with teams like Ohio State. They can beat teams like Ohio State, and they can get over that hump every now and then and make the college football playoff. They can do that again. They can get another team like the 2016 Nittany Lions with McSorley and Godwin and Gesicki and Barkley and that team was filled with future NFL players. They could easily have a team like that in the coming years. They just need a competent head coach. I get it. 2 weeks ago, Penn State with Sean Clifford, they should have won. If Clifford was in the game, they win that game. From the way Iowa was playing and the way Penn State was playing, as far as I'm concerned, if Clifford's in that game, we win. And honestly, maybe that would cause us to win this game too, just based off of momentum and things of that nature. But my goodness, people are saying, well, this would be our first loss technically. All right, fair, I'll give you that. But they still should have won with Traquan Robertson last week as far as I'm concerned. Their coaching certainly did not do him any favors. James Franklin, he threw the white flag. He said, we can't win with this guy. Ruins the man's confidence. They show no confidence in that man from the second he walked onto the field. I have a problem with that. They show no confidence. They had the audacity to sit there and clap like this for the ball whenever they are in Kinnick Stadium in a game between two top 4 teams in the Big Ten, in the same conference. How's that going to work? I don't know. The coaching told him to do it. Right? Situational football. What are we doing? Right? James Franklin, 3 years ago, 2018 against Ohio State. What did we do? Running the ball with Miles Sanders, that game never worked. And what did we do on 4th down and 5 with the game on the line after we had choked the game away? Wow. 2nd year in a row, guys. 2 in a row. Yeah. We lost by 1 2 years in a row. I will never forget that. What play do we run? We run a halfback zone to Miles Sanders when Chase Young has had a great game and he's on the defensive line. And what do you know? The play gets blown up and Ohio State wins. That's the play calling. That's the offensive coordinator. That's James Franklin for approving the play. No one stepped in and had the idea that maybe this won't work. Maybe the only type of running that worked was with McSorley. They were going to spy him. You have to throw the ball. You can roll out with McSorley, but you got to throw the football. Have McSorley be the bait. That way the tight ends can go down the field and chuck it to him. Pass it to him. No, we do a halfback zone. That's just one example from the past. And it's still here to this day, folks. That has not changed. James Franklin reminds me so much of Mike Tomlin. Except James Franklin has had much more talent than Mike Tomlin has had. Mike Tomlin went 8-8 with Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges. James Franklin, he can't seem to get it right. And he has one of the best teams in the nation. We have the best recruiting class this year. Right? I know hardly any of them are on the field right now. But my goodness. He doesn't do the team any favors. I really don't think James Franklin helps his team win. He's just a liability. Okay? He's not the full reason why we lost this game, but this game right here proved to me what I've thought for years, and that's that James Franklin is holding this football program back. He is not doing us any favors. All right? You tell me, the viewer, tell me in the comment section below. Penn State, if I see one person say yes and they're not joking, I really genuinely think that you need to seek some form of assistance because, let's be honest, if Penn State plays this way against Ohio State, the 3-headed monster that they have at running back is going to get 700 yards, and that will just be the first half. They'll be down 63-0 at the end of the first quarter. I know some of that might seem like a hyperbole, but it might not be that far off, folks. If they play the way they did today in Columbus, there's no hope. They might as well not play. They might as well not show up and just give the game to Ohio State. Right? They're, Penn State, this is not their season anymore. This is not the season. I really thought the way things were going in college football, I genuinely thought that Penn State had a chance. Even if they lost one game, they had a chance to make the playoff. I really felt that. I really felt with the way all of some of these some of these monsters like, immortal college football figures like Alabama, they lost. Clemson, they're not doing too hot. Ohio State in the first 3 weeks looked like crap. And don't get me wrong, that loss to Oregon wasn't shameful, but Oregon, they're not playing very great right now. Oklahoma's look pretty suspect, but they look better with Caleb Williams. But yet again, they escaped against Kansas today. The college football landscape has changed drastically this season. There's no definitive best team in the nation. Right now, I'd say it's Georgia. I'd agree with that. But they all look vulnerable to an extent. None of them look immortal. And that's why I had so much hope that this Penn State team could really make a fight for the playoff this year. And what do? They lose to Iowa. Should they have won with Clifford? Would they have won with Clifford? Yes, I'm willing to admit that. They should have won with the resources that they had, though. I'll die knowing that they should have won that game with Traquan Robertson. I get Sean Clifford wasn't 100%. I didn't expect for him to be anything spectacular. I don't think if we had Robertson in this game, it would have been much of a different outcome, but I guess we'll never know. But I think if we did start Robertson, then Clifford coming back after having 3 weeks off against Ohio State in a big game like that, if we won today, wouldn't be good. So I agree with the decision to start him. But he played a lot worse than he should have played. I get the circumstances. He still underperformed my expectations. And I think I'm a pretty fair football fan. Health comes before football for the player. And if it doesn't, then you shouldn't be playing football because Ryan Shazier, let's be honest, if football came before health, he might have stepped back on the field again. You can't do that. I love the man. You can't do that. And they just look terrible. There was no heart in this team. There was no desire that I felt in this team. They looked like crap. The play calling was terrible. There was no heart. There was no passion. Didn't even feel like they wanted to be there. They just looked so lifeless. And this is the most embarrassing loss I've ever seen them play. This includes when they had Christian Hackenberg at quarterback and when they decided that, we're just going to throw our season away suddenly. They were 5-0. And I get the circumstances of the Iowa game and how they should have won with Clifford, but they still should have won that game, but now they're 5-2. Their season's over. The only point of playing the rest of the season is to play spoiler, is to ruin team seasons like Ohio State, Michigan State. That's the only purpose, right? I'm going to still watch this team week in and week out. I'll never turn off the television when they're on. I'm not that type of fan. I don't just walk away whenever my team's playing poorly. But my goodness, they looked like crap today. They looked like crap. I have never seen them look so badly. I've never. And I mean, just to see the team that you have so much hope in just decide that they're going to lose to Illinois Fighting Illini, and every year them being this close, but they can never grasp it. They're so close, but they can't grasp it, and just getting your hopes up every year and just the same thing happening, it sucks, man. It really sucks. It's heartbreaking. Because, I love this team. I love this school. And I know I'm going to look like an idiot. But, I can accept the loss. But, man, is this one hard. Just all you want, my life, not my life, but my passion in life involves sports. So, as you can imagine, the teams that I love, I love them. I really love them. And just to see them come so close and you have so much hope in them and really think that one day they're going to get it done and they just can't do it, man, it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. I can't even fathom how terribly they played today. They played like crap. James Franklin, they're limited by James Franklin. They can't take that extra step to make the college football playoff or maybe even win another Big Ten championship if Franklin is the head coach. And no one else is willing to accept that. I don't see a ton of people that are willing to accept that in the media, people that are willing to accept that in State College, but he's just not. He would fit in perfectly with a team like Ole Miss. Because Ole Miss, they're good, but they're not great. They lose to the big dogs, and that's exactly what James Franklin has done with this program. The only time he hasn't done that was the one game in 2016 against Ohio State. The one game I just wish I could relive. And once again, the way it looks, unless if something changes, I think they'll play better next week because there's no way they can possibly get worse. But the way it looks is they're losing again. If they play this way, they're not going to win another game the rest of the season. I don't think they'll play this poorly. And if they do, then oh my God. Oh my God. But they were 5-0, and just like that, season's gone. It's gone. Gotta wait another year. Maybe next year, right? Not with Franklin at the helm. I'm sorry, not with James Franklin. Especially if Roberson's the quarterback. Like I said, they're not doing him any favors, but if he's the quarterback, we're not beating Ohio State. We're not beating Michigan. We're not beating Michigan State. I mean, it's just so disappointing. I really love this team. And just to see them play the way they did and their season end the way they did, you don't want to see them lose, but if their season's really gonna officially be over in the sense that they're not gonna make the playoff, at least have it be against a good team. Right? Ohio State, even Michigan State and Michigan, but preferably Ohio State. I just want to feel joy in the end of the season watching college football, knowing that my team can maybe still make the playoff. And I haven't felt that since 2016. If they hadn't had those 2 early losses that year, even just one, they probably would have made the number 4 spot over Washington that year. Let's be honest. When the season was over, they were the better team than Washington. Just Washington hadn't lost because they played a weak Pac-12 schedule. Penn State had lost too because they hadn't became the powerhouse and really found themselves quite yet, and they were 2-2. But then the Ohio State game happened. And man, I just wish I could go back to that time. Because right now, Penn State, that was a shameful performance. I can't even fathom what I just saw. That was shameful. That was disgusting. That was a disgrace to the game of football. And the fact that we could not outscore the Fighting Illini in 9 overtimes with 100,000 people, over 100,000 people that have the same passion for this team just like me, and they can't get that job done. They keep dropping passes, running stupid plays. They don't get it done. That's heartbreaking. That's terrible. It's a hard pill to swallow. And man, I mean, I really wish they could get over that hump, because just seeing them even have a chance in late December, January to maybe even if they play Alabama and get crushed, that'd be the best game that I've ever had in my life as a Penn State fan, because at least I know they made it, right? They made it that far. Progress. But they lost. They're not going to be going anywhere this year. They can try to play spoiler to a couple of teams. That they still have a big game next week. I still love how that's a 7:30 game. But I'm just beyond. I'm worn out. I mean, I'm lifeless. But at the same time, I'm just so mad and I'm so sad, but I just can't portray anything because this team has just squeezed all the energy out of me right now. They haven't given me anything right now to be mad about. I'm just disappointed. I mean, all of the fears have came true, and it's against a team where we should have beat them even without Sean Clifford and the Fighting Illini. Right? And if this is the year where they find a way to beat Ohio State, I'll be a happy boy. I'll be a very happy boy. But it'd all be a waste, because they already lost 2 games. You can't do that in college football and expect to even have a chance to make the playoff. And the way it looks is there's going to be a Big Ten team with one loss or maybe even 0 losses that takes the Big Ten East and is representing them, and that team's not going to be Penn State for another year. Another year is going to go by where they're good, but they're just not good enough, and I've never seen them play so poorly in my life. If they play this way against Ohio State, you can expect maybe the best piece of content that you have ever seen on this channel. Because let me tell you, I will be livid. I will be livid. There's absolutely no way that they're going to be able to go there and beat Ohio State if they play the way they played today. That there won't even be a point of showing up. And I love college football. I love sports. I love Penn State. But man, that game took about 65 years off of my life, and it was all for a loss. Like I said, if they won, they wouldn't have deserved to win, but at least they'd live to fight another day. And they don't do that. They can't do it. Every year I get my hopes up for this team, and they start giving me something to be hopeful for, and they turn around and do this. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter who you're playing next. It doesn't matter if your quarterback's not 100%. You should still beat the Illinois Fighting Illini if you're truly a football team that wants it. As far as I'm concerned, from the way they played, at least, the way they played today shows me that they didn't want it. I'm sure they did, but they definitely didn't. They definitely didn't display that on the football field, as they didn't convey that to me or any of the fans. And this is easily the worst loss that Penn State has experienced the past decade. I don't care. This maybe even the program's history. Like, I'm being serious. Like, there's a valid argument to it, because, like I said, if they lose to Ohio State, there's no shame in that. But knowing that that's the way your season ends against a team that's actually good is much more comforting than knowing that the way your season ends is against the Illini. The only game that I could see is worse to be a Penn State fan would be their national championship loss. That's it. The only game where it might suck more to be a Penn State fan, where they drain more life out of you, but at least that team made it. And just to know that this team's not going to make it, and this team, a team that really could have taken advantage of college football having somewhat of a wacky year, can't even get into the 8th week of the season with having any sort of playoff aspirations, and just sitting back and watching them knowing, yeah, even if they beat Ohio State, yeah, cool, that's awesome, I'm glad we win their season as well, and we beat a big rival of ours, and we're still a good team, but it's really all going to be for nothing because of this game. In the game before this game, they were 5-0, and now they're 5-2. And it looks like we're going to have to wait another year until maybe Penn State can get the job done and maybe get over the hump. But I'm your boy Meatloaf. You can be expecting more sorts of content involving this game, including like a Days of Our Steelers type episode, except for Penn State, obviously. I'm sure you guys will enjoy that, but it's a really tough day to be a fan of the Penn State Nittany Lions. And it's still, really, I still love the team. I still love the school. And I'll never stop rooting for them. I'll watch every game until the day I die. But this was a heartbreaker.